What's up everybody, Cody McCarty here with Explore Travel Capture, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the A7RV, which this is one of Sony's flagship hybrid mirrorless cameras. And prior to the R5, I had owned every R series camera Sony had put out, but for the past few weeks I've gotten to play around with this, use it in the real world. I even got to take it with me on my trip to London with my wife, and honestly, this camera is pretty darn impressive for both photo and video. Now, I haven't owned a photo focus camera in a long time, and shooting with the R5 was really enjoyable. The viewfinder is super clear, and the tilt flip hybrid screen Sony is putting into their cameras now is perfect for shooting at any angle. Now, the level of image quality on this camera is ridiculous. Landscapes, portraits, product shots, you name it, this camera delivers. You need to crop? Go ahead. You've got megapixels to spare. It is truly incredible how much detail you get out of this sensor, and I really did love the flexibility of being able to crop in post. And even with the higher resolution, the dynamic range was truly impressive. I retained a ton of details in both shadows and highlights, and even with the 61 megapixel sensor, the low light performance met all my expectations. Now, the autofocus is nearly perfect. I did have some issues where it missed focus, like on this photo of a sloth, but I think the eye autofocus here mistook the nostrils for its eyes. So I'll give it a little bit of a pass there. But that really is the only time this camera missed focus for me. I also played around with the hyped up AI autofocus and facial recognition. I really thought this feature would be a gimmick, but this feature really is insane. Testing it in London's crowds, I found it to be incredibly sticky on me and Chelsea. Even in video, it found us very quickly and held focus. Now, this incredible image quality isn't without its drawbacks. It comes at a huge cost, as the 61 megapixel RAW files are massive. You'll definitely need a robust workflow and plenty of storage to handle them. This was actually one of the main reasons I moved away from the R series cameras years ago. But now I find my original M1 Mac handles editing in Lightroom just fine, with some lag editing some longer time lapses. So if you have a modern computer, plenty of storage, and want the most detailed photos you can get on a full frame camera, this one's it. Now, the video on this camera looks fantastic, and for stuff like YouTube videos, it will work great. This camera can even record in 8K. Yep, that's right. It can shoot in 8K. But let's be honest, how often are you shooting in 8K? It really seems more like a future-proofing feature than is necessary right now, and I personally don't even know if and when 8K will become a standard. However, even with the hyped up 8K, there are a couple things that would keep me from using this as the main camera for any professional production. Starting with the 8K, if you want a true full-frame image, you won't get it in 8K. The camera does a 1.2 times crop to give you a 1:1 readout, which is great for getting the highest detail possible, but annoying because it changes the focal length of all your lenses. This was especially annoying trying to shoot wide shots. The other problem I had with the 8K was the slow readout speed, which meant really bad rolling shutter. I only have a couple examples of this, as I wasn't shooting a lot of fast moving subjects during my limited time with the camera, but it is noticeable in some of the backgrounds of my train shots in London and some of the driving shots on the buses. If you're looking to get true full frame video, you can only get it by shooting in 4K, which is pixel binned. So pixel binning is basically combining data from multiple pixels into one larger pixel. This effectively reduces the resolution, but it does improve brightness and reduces noise, especially in low light. And Sony's binning process is fantastic, by the way. Usually when you're pixel binning, you lose a little bit of sharpness, but it is hard to see a sharpness difference between my FX3's 1:1 4K and the 4K on the R5. Because of this, it was a more than usable B cam to my FX3 for my short film touring London. By the way, that video is down below, and I recommend checking it out after you finish this one. But there's one more feature that is a deal breaker for me in terms of this being my primary camera, and it once again comes to the slower sensor readout speeds, and that is slow motion recording options. Now, even though I don't shoot a ton of slow motion, I do use my 4K 120 enough on my FX3 that having a camera that doesn't have that 4K 120 is a deal breaker. Now, this camera does have 4K 60, but even if that is enough for your slow-mo needs, be mindful there is a 1.2 times crop in that, and it's in that pixel bin mode, which means you're gonna lose a little bit of sharpness. Now the low light in video is surprisingly usable, and I had no complaints pulling this camera out at night. However, I don't think I used a single lens slower than f2, so the lens definitely could have been carrying the low light images you saw in this video. So my final thoughts on the video in this camera. If video is your main focus, you definitely would be better off leaning towards the more affordable Sony A7 IV. The oversampled 4K video produces a much nicer, uncropped full-frame image, and it has comparable readout speeds at a fraction of the cost. Even to photography-focused individuals, I would say the 61 megapixels on the R5 is just overkill. If you're primarily posting to Instagram or other social media platforms, you're paying for resolution you might not fully utilize. Now, don't get me wrong. The Sony A7RV is a beast of a camera that pushes the boundaries of what's possible in a mirrorless system. Just be prepared to pay the price in both dollars and storage space. But that concludes my thoughts on the A7RV, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, we'll see you later.